I never thought my wedding day would end with me standing in a police station, but there I was at 2 a.m., still in my reception dress, mascara streaked down my face like war paint I hadn't asked for. The officer behind the desk looked at me with that mix of pity and exhaustion you only see in people who've worked the Gravenite shift too long. She slid a plastic bag across the counter. Inside was my phone, my purse, and the small clutch I'd carried down the aisle just 12 hours earlier. "You're free to go, Mrs. Chen," she said, then caught herself. Sorry, is it still Morrison? I don't know anymore, I admitted. The wedding had been perfect. That's what everyone kept saying. My sister Emma had outdone herself as maid of honor, organizing every detail down to the specific shade of ivory for the napkins. My mom cried during the ceremony. My dad's speech at the reception had everyone laughing and crying at the same time. And Marcus, my husband of exactly 7 hours at that point, had looked at me like I was the only person in the world. Until his phone rang during our first dance. I felt him tense in my arms. The song was still playing, some romantic melody Emma had insisted on, and Marcus stopped moving. Just froze right there in the middle of the dance floor with 150 guests watching us. "I have to take this," he said, already pulling away. "Now?" I tried to laugh it off, tried to ignore the weird flutter in my stomach. "Can't it wait?" But he was already walking toward the exit. Phone pressed to his ear, and I was left standing alone in my $1,000 dress, wondering what could possibly be so urgent on our wedding night. Emma swooped in immediately. Always the rescuer. "Technical difficulties," she announced cheerfully to the crowd. "Let's get some more champagne flowing while we wait for the groom to handle some last-minute business emergency." Except Marcus didn't come back. 20 minutes passed. Then 40. I checked my phone a dozen times. Nothing. Emma kept making excuses, kept refilling my champagne glass, kept steering concerned relatives away from me with practiced efficiency. "He's probably just dealing with a work crisis," she said, squeezing my hand. "You know how demanding his job is." I did know. Marcus was a project manager at a tech startup. Always on call. Always putting out fires. But on our wedding night, something felt wrong. At the 1-hour mark, I went looking for him. I found him in the parking lot, leaning against his car, still on the phone, but he wasn't talking about work. He was talking about me. I know, he was saying, his voice low and tense. But what was I supposed to do? Call it off at the last minute? "Do you know how much her family spent on this?" My blood went cold. "Look, we'll figure it out," he continued. "Give me a few weeks to sort through everything, and then I'll file." Yeah, the annulment route if we can swing it. Community property laws in this state are insane otherwise. I must have made a sound, some small gasp or sob, because his head snapped up. For a second, we just stared at each other. Then he lowered the phone, and I saw something I'd never seen in his face before. Guilt. Yes. But also calculation, like he was running through scenarios, figuring out how to minimize the damage. "Rachel, I can explain," he started. "Who were you talking to?" My voice sounded strange, distant, like it belonged to someone else. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" I took a step toward him. "Because it sounded like you married me as some kind of, financial strategy?" He ran his hand through his hair, messing up the careful styling Emma had overseen that morning. "You're taking this out of context." "Context." I laughed, and it came out jagged. "Okay, give me context. Explain why my husband of barely 7 hours is already planning our annulment in a parking lot while our guests are inside eating cake." "Rachel, just calm down." "Do not tell me to calm down." My voice echoed across the parking lot. Somewhere in the distance, I heard music still playing from the reception hall. Our song. The one Emma had chosen because she said it represented new beginnings. Marcus's phone buzzed in his hand. He glanced at it, then at me, and in that moment of hesitation, I knew. Whatever he was about to say would be a lie. Whatever explanation he'd constructed on his walk to the parking lot would be designed to buy him time, to smooth things over until he could execute whatever plan he'd already set in motion. "I want to see your phone," I said. "What?" "No, Rachel, that's crazy." Show me your phone right now, or I'm walking back in there and telling everyone exactly what I just heard. We stood there, in a standoff, my wedding dress rustling in the evening breeze, his phone still buzzing with incoming messages. Finally, he shook his head. You know what? Fine. You want to do this now? Let's do this. He pocketed his phone. Yes. I've been talking to a lawyer. Yes. I've been having second thoughts. Are you really that surprised? We rushed into this, Rachel. 6 months from first date to wedding day. That's insane. You proposed to me. The words came out as a shout. You got down on one knee at my birthday party in front of my entire family and proposed. Nobody forced you. I got caught up in the moment. The moment. I felt like I was watching myself from outside my body, like this couldn't actually be happening. That moment was 4 months ago. You had 4 months to back out. You had this morning. You had the ceremony. You had 7 hours of marriage. But you waited until I heard you planning our divorce to say something? I was trying to find the right time. There is no right time to tell your wife you married her by mistake. His face hardened. Stop making a scene. A scene? Marcus, you abandoned our first dance to call a lawyer. I think the scene already started. Just go back inside, he said tiredly. I'll come in soon. We'll finish the reception. We can deal with the rest later. Deal with what, exactly? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. I turned and walked back toward the reception hall, my hands shaking so badly I could barely open the door. Inside, the party was still going. My dad was dancing with my aunt. Emma was chatting with some cousins by the bar. The cake stood untouched on its special table, waiting for us to cut it together. Everything looked exactly as I'd left it, as if the last hour hadn't just shattered my entire life. Emma spotted me and hurried over. There you are. Where's Marcus? People are asking about the cake cutting. I need your help, I said quietly. Something's wrong. She must have heard something in my voice because her professional hostess smile vanished. What happened? Can you cover for me? Tell everyone I'm not feeling well. Tell them whatever you want, but I need to leave. Rachel, you can't leave your own wedding reception. Watch me. I was halfway to the exit when Marcus came back inside. He'd composed himself, put on his groom's smile, and was already making his way toward a cluster of his work friends. Like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't just told someone on the phone that our marriage was a mistake he needed to quickly undo. That's when I made a decision. I walked up to the microphone, the one my dad had used for his speech earlier. Tapped it twice. The room gradually went quiet. Everyone turning to look at me with expectant smiles, probably thinking I was about to give some romantic speech thanking everyone for coming. I need to make an announcement, I said. Emma's face went white. Marcus had stopped mid-conversation, his expression frozen in dawning horror. I want to thank you all for being here tonight, to celebrate what we all thought was the beginning of a marriage. My voice was surprisingly steady. Unfortunately, it turns out the groom had some different plans that he forgot to mention until just now. So I'm very sorry, but there won't be a cake cutting. There also won't be a marriage. Have a safe drive home, and please take some cake with you on your way out. It's paid for. The room erupted. People were shouting questions. My mother was rushing toward me. Marcus was pushing through the crowd, trying to reach the stage. Emma just stood there looking at me with something like awe on her face. I handed the microphone to the DJ and walked out. That should have been the end of it. Humiliating, yes. Devastating, absolutely. But at least it would have been over. Instead, Marcus called the police. He told them I'd stolen his credit card, that I'd made unauthorized charges, that he wanted to press charges for fraud. The credit card in question? The one he'd given me 3 months ago with my name on it, telling me to use it for wedding expenses. The one I'd used to pay deposits, buy decorations, coordinate with vendors. The one he'd explicitly told me was for our wedding. But apparently, according to him, I'd gone rogue, spent money without authorization, committed fraud. The police came to my apartment at midnight. They were apologetic but firm. Someone had filed a report. They needed to bring me in for questioning. No. It couldn't wait until morning. So there I was, still in my wedding dress, being read my rights while my neighbor watched through her peephole. At the station, they asked me questions for 2 hours, showed me credit card statements, asked me to explain each charge. The florist, the photographer, the venue deposit, all the things Marcus and I had discussed together, planned together, agreed on together. He gave me the card, I kept saying. He told me to use it. Do you have that in writing? I didn't. Why would I? He was my fiancé, soon to be my husband. You don't get written authorization from your partner to plan your shared wedding, but now, apparently, you should. They let me go eventually. Insufficient evidence, the officer said. But Marcus had made his point. He could make my life hell if he wanted to. He could tie me up in legal battles, ruin my credit, make me defend every decision I'd made in good faith. Emma picked me up from the station at 3 a.m., her face grim. Mom's losing it, she said as we drove through empty streets. Dad wants to hire a lawyer. Everyone's calling. The whole family knows. I'm sorry, I said automatically. Sorry? Rachel. You have nothing to be sorry for. Marcus is the one who should be apologizing. She glanced at me. Did you really not know? Not see any signs? Had I? I replayed the last 6 months in my head. The whirlwind romance, the quick proposal, his eagerness to get married soon rather than wait, his insistence on keeping our finances separate until after the wedding, which I'd thought was smart and responsible. Now I wondered if it had all been calculated, if he'd been planning something from the start. There's one thing I don't understand, Emma said, pulling into my apartment complex. If he wanted out, why go through with the wedding at all? Why not just call it off before? That was the question, wasn't it? I didn't sleep that night. Just sat on my couch in my ruined wedding dress, watching the sky gradually lighten, trying to piece together what had happened and why. My phone buzzed constantly. Messages from relatives, friends, people who'd been at the reception. Most were supportive, some were just nosy. A few seemed to blame me for making a scene, as if I'd somehow manufactured the entire situation for attention. But there was one message that made me sit up straight. It was from Lily, Marcus's coworker. We'd met a few times, had chatted at Marcus's company parties. She was friendly but distant, the way coworkers are when they're not sure how permanent your relationship with their colleague will be. Her message was brief. Call me when you can. There's something you need to know. I called immediately. Rachel, she said, her voice tight. I'm so sorry about last night. When I heard what happened, I knew I had to tell you. Tell me what? She hesitated. Marcus has been seeing someone from the office. Started about 2 months ago, right around when you sent out the wedding invitations. The world tilted. Her name is Jennifer, Lily continued. She started here in March. She's in accounting. And Rachel, she's been... God, I hate to say this, but she's been planning with him. They talk about it openly in the break room when they think no one important is listening. About how he'll get out of the marriage quickly, how they'll be together once the annulment goes through. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. My voice sounded hollow. Because I thought you knew. I thought maybe you two had some arrangement, or things weren't working out and the wedding was just going through the motions. But after last night, when I heard he'd called the cops on you, when I realized you had no idea, she took a breath. That's not right. You deserved to know before you married him. I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner. After we hung up, I sat there holding my phone, pieces clicking into place. Marcus hadn't gotten cold feet. He hadn't rushed into marriage and regretted it. He'd been planning this. The wedding, the immediate exit strategy, all of it. But why? The answer came to me slowly, like surfacing from deep water. His startup, the one he worked for, they'd been making noise about going public, about equity packages for early employees. Marcus had been with them since the beginning. If the company went public, his stock options would be worth a fortune. But California was a community property state. Anything acquired during a marriage belonged to both spouses, unless the marriage ended before the stocks vested. Unless it could be annulled, erased, like it never happened. I pulled out my laptop and started searching. His company's SEC filings, news articles about their IPO timeline, financial forums discussing their equity structure. It was all there. The IPO was expected to be announced in 3 months. Early employees like Marcus stood to make millions, but only if those options weren't subject to community property division. He'd married me knowing he would leave. He'd gone through with the wedding, the ceremony, the reception, all while planning his exit. And the timing of his lawyer call? That hadn't been spontaneous. That had been the moment he'd decided to put his plan into motion, probably triggered by some update about the IPO timeline. I'd been a placeholder. A temporary inconvenience he'd decided to manage through false promises and quick exits. The credit card accusations, the police, all of it was designed to put me on the defensive, to make me the bad guy, to give him leverage in whatever legal proceedings came next. I should have been devastated. Part of me was. But mostly, I was angry. Emma called at 7 a.m. "You sound weird. What's going on?" I told her everything. The affair, the stock options, the deliberate manipulation. She was quiet for a long time. Then, "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to see a lawyer." "Good. Take him for everything." "No," I said slowly. An idea was forming. The lawyer I found specialized in tech industry divorces. She'd seen cases like mine before, she said. Men who married without prenups, then realized too late that California's community property laws meant their startup success would be shared with their spouses. "The good news," she said, "is that you're married. Legally. An annulment is hard to get in California. He'd have to prove fraud or some other specific ground. Just changing his mind isn't enough. So the marriage stands? Until he files for divorce and it's finalized, yes. And that process takes a minimum of 6 months from the date of filing." She smiled. 6 months during which any assets acquired are still community property. I felt something unlock in my chest. His stocks vest in 3 months. Then you have quite the decision to make, Rachel. You can file first, control the narrative, potentially negotiate a settlement, or you can wait, let him file, and see what happens when those options vest while you're still legally married. I thought about Marcus's face in the parking lot, his casual cruelty, the way he'd called the police on me for expenses he'd approved, the affair he'd been conducting while planning our wedding. "I want to wait," I said. "Are you sure? That's a risk. He might file immediately." "Let him file. I'll contest it. Drag it out. I want those 6 months." She nodded slowly. "I can work with that." Marcus filed for divorce 3 days later. His petition claimed irreconcilable differences and requested an immediate division of assets. There weren't many. We'd been married for barely a week, but he wanted it done, wanted it over, wanted to establish that we were separated before his stocks vested. My lawyer filed a response that contested everything. We demanded counseling first. We questioned the timeline. We asked for detailed financial disclosures. We threw up every possible roadblock. Marcus was furious. He called me a dozen times. I didn't answer. He showed up at my apartment. I didn't open the door. He sent emails threatening to sue me for harassment, for defamation, for anything he could think of. I ignored all of it. Emma became my handler, fielding family questions, running interference with concerned relatives who didn't understand why I wasn't just accepting the divorce and moving on. "Because she doesn't have to," Emma told my mother firmly when she brought it up. "Because he doesn't get to manipulate her, use her, call the cops on her, and then walk away clean." "But honey," my mother said helplessly, "everyone's talking. People think Rachel is being vindictive." "Let them talk," I said. I was done caring what people thought. The weeks crawled by. Marcus's lawyer sent increasingly aggressive letters. My lawyer responded with procedural delays and discovery requests. We were careful. Nothing illegal. Nothing that would get sanctions. Just the normal, grinding process of a contested divorce stretched to its maximum length. Meanwhile, I did my research. Jennifer from accounting, the woman Marcus had been seeing. I found her social media. Found photos of her and Marcus together at company events, carefully cropped to look professional. Found posts where she talked about new beginnings and taking chances on love. I saved everything. I also found the company's public filings, confirmed the IPO timeline, watched as the date approached, then arrived, then passed. The stock options vested. Marcus and other early employees became millionaires overnight. And we were still married. His lawyers went ballistic. Filed emergency motions. Claimed I was acting in bad faith. Demanded immediate asset division based on the separation date. not the stock vest date. My lawyer smiled and filed oppositions. California law was clear. Assets acquired during marriage were community property, regardless of separation. The divorce wasn't final. We were still married when the stocks vested. Therefore, I was entitled to half. The number was staggering. Marcus's equity package, now public, was worth just over $4 million. My community property share, $2 million, for a marriage that lasted 7 hours and change. Marcus tried one last time to reach me, showed up at my work, looking haggard. "Rachel, please. Let's be reasonable. You don't want this money. You're not this person." "You're right," I said calmly. "I don't particularly want your money. But I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Can't we just move past this?" "You didn't make a mistake, Marcus. You made a series of calculated decisions designed to use me and discard me. You married me knowing you'd leave. You called the police on me to intimidate me. You humiliated me in front of my entire family. I panicked. You planned." I leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. We're going to settle. You're going to give me my community property share. And then I'm going to do something with it that you're really going to hate." His face went pale. "What?" "You'll see." The divorce finalized 6 weeks later. I got my settlement. Marcus got his remaining equity and a very expensive lesson about community property law. Jennifer, from accounting, coincidentally, broke up with him 2 weeks after the settlement went through. Apparently, she'd been interested in the millionaire version of Marcus, not the recently divorced and significantly less wealthy version. As for me and the money, I didn't keep it. Instead, I used it to start a nonprofit, an organization that provided legal resources for people going through divorces they couldn't afford to fight, people being intimidated by wealthy spouses, people being gaslit and manipulated by partners who thought they could control the narrative through money and lawyers. I called it Second Chances Legal Aid. Emma designed the logo. My dad helped with the business structure. My mom, who'd spent weeks worrying about what people would say, became our loudest champion. We helped 73 people in our first year, provided legal consultations, connected them with lawyers willing to work pro bono or reduced rates, educated them about their rights. Marcus heard about it, of course. Sent me a bitter email about how I was using his money to spite him. I didn't respond. But Emma did, with my permission. She sent him a simple message. "It's not your money anymore. It's hers. And she's using it to help people you tried to become." Funny how that works. I ran into him once, about a year later, at a coffee shop downtown. He looked older, tired. He started to say something, then stopped. "I really am sorry," he finally said. "For all of it." "I believe you," I said, and I did. People can be sorry and still not deserve forgiveness. "Are you happy?" he asked. I thought about it. About the nonprofit. About the people we'd helped. About the life I'd built from the wreckage of that 7-hour marriage. "Yes," I said. "I really am." He nodded and left. And I went back to my coffee and my laptop, reviewing case files for our newest client, a woman whose husband had tried to hide assets during their divorce, who'd been told by multiple lawyers that she couldn't win, that she should just accept whatever he was willing to give. We were going to help her prove them wrong, because that's the thing about revenge. It doesn't have to be about destruction. Sometimes, the best revenge is taking the worst thing someone did to you and turning it into something that helps other people. Sometimes the best revenge is just living better than they ever imagined you could. I finished my coffee and called our newest client to tell her we were taking her case. Second chances, I'd learned, aren't just about new beginnings. Sometimes they're about taking back the power someone tried to steal and using it to make sure they never steal from anyone else again. Marcus had thought he was using me as a stepping stone to his fortune. Instead, he'd funded the exact opposite of everything he believed in, and I'd never been happier.